so many different projects getting to see the light of day because of that. So what a great program. And yes, it's true. Hollywood is definitely a difficult place to manage and navigate through. And, I'm proud to have 20 years in the business and have been working on the studio side, the independent side. And it is interesting. I started as a journalist, so I come to the table as a reporter, sort of a Lois Lane type, trying to get to the truth. And in uncovering the truth, you go on a journey, and I think it's different for everyone. I don't think everyone will have the same awakening. It's sort of like a coming out, so to speak. And it's funny how you'll find within your own personal network, friends, family, other people who are following the story, although they're doing it quietly, in their homes at night on the computer, following it very closely. I was surprised, very close friends of mine who I just never thought were even paying attention. When I mentioned working with you and on the film, they're just like, oh my gosh, I actually helped fund the project. Not only were they a contributor, but they'd been following the story for 5 years and felt like they never had anyone to talk to, and they were so happy that I was now talking to them about it and being able to share any intel and information that I had. So I think that's the great thing about the Sirius film. And as you were talking about the CE5, I was reminded of watching some of the sequences of the film that I've been fortunate enough to see, and the parts of the film that really strike you as a human, where like any great film, where the hair on your arm just stands up because you're feeling so connected to the content. This film actually does that, and part of the film that makes that happen is the CE5 initiative, and how that really brings everyone together. And it becomes the unifying moment in the film that the audience, I think, will just want to turn around and hug each other, and just stand for joy and just sort of, announce this,
Well, and what's exciting is that we have people who are now coordinating as volunteers. Again, we have no paid staff or office, but we have this network globally now where it literally is thousands of people and hundreds of teams that get coordinated on this monthly basis, where they go out under the stars and do this meditative process and contact process, which has an enormous effect in what Rupert Sheldrake called the morphogenic field and sort of the collective consciousness. And that has been so gratifying, because I feel like, I could drop dead tomorrow and this could all go on, because so many people have learned this. And in fact, we now, in the last couple of months, we've had for a year or two an iPhone app where you can learn all these protocols. And there's a link to that at the SiriusDisclosure.com site, SIRIUS, like the star system, SiriusDisclosure.com. But there's now an Android, and the Android app has widened it because so many people have Android phones and not iPhones. And the people are going out with their iPhones and iPads and smartphones and Galaxies and everything, and they have the meditation, they have the tones. The app actually turns your device into a magnetic field detector, so if there's an approach of a craft that may not be in the visible spectrum, it'll start moving and going off, all kinds of things that are in this app. And actually, I hope this year we're going to have a version 2.0 where we're going to have even more material added to these apps. But the people, thousands of people are getting these apps from all over the world now. And we got a report from a truck driver, I think in Estonia, one of the Eastern European countries, and he had the app and was practicing this, and he had this amazing encounter on a highway where he'd taken a break, and this craft comes over and has contact. And then we've had, so all over the world, in almost every country, this is happening. It's very, very exciting to see what's going on.
Yeah, and being someone who learned directly from you, heard about CE5 for the first time, I think it'd be good to share with your listeners, just a few little tidbits of, how that came together, because I think there might be a myth that, you have to have a large group or you have to have Dr. Greer with you to be able to have this happen, and that's not the case. You can literally find that peaceful place within you, go outside, know that it's okay for you to see these things and allow yourself to see it. And I think people can really do a lot of, preparatory work just on their own. And whether you see something or don't see something, it's a bit like fishing. You must be patient, and it's a bit of a Zen approach, So I think it's good for listeners to know that it's not a difficult thing to do. It's just a sort of something that you have to practice at. And for me, the first time that I had seen anything from a CE5, looking in the sky, I was actually within reach of you, and I started having some experiences. And
was it when we were at Sundance 2 years ago? Yeah.
I think you might remember. I pulled you outside, and I was like, "Is this it?" Because I just kind of ran into the parking lot and just kind of had a moment, and things started happening. So I was very excited, and that kind of opened me up to the possibility. So the next 5 days while we were all working together leading up to our Sundance event, we had the most amazing thing happen to all 15 of us as we were driving home through the snowy night to our large house in Heber where we were all staying and running our show from. And we had what was just one of the most amazing sightings that all of us were seeing, and everyone was sort of afraid to comment until somebody finally said, "Do you see that?" And then everyone just kind of erupted because we're in these minivans, driving on the freeway, and it followed us all the way home to the point where we had gotten stuck in the snow, and it was just hovering so close to us. And, it wasn't one of those tiny, maybe it's a satellite kind of situations, but something that felt as big as the full moon hovering up above us. And It was just life-changing forever, and I was so lucky to feel that connectivity. And I know that was there for all of us so that we had our experience so that we can feel more confident going forward in talking about CE5 and encouraging people to explore it.
Right, and I found this is true of everyone who gives themselves to it in a pure-hearted way. Something like that will happen that'll say yes. And I know that happened to actor Thomas Jane also, and we took him out in the desert last year and had this amazing experience happen, and he's had subsequent ones as well. And I think that what I've discovered is that these ETs are very aware of the relatively small number of people out of the 7 billion people on the planet who are on the cutting edge of trying to make something amazing happen for humanity that moves us to the next level of our civilization, not just technologically, but also in terms of conscious evolution and contact and the development of our civilization. And if someone begins to move in that direction, it's sort of amazing how they're there, and in the most enigmatic but also, in a sense, effortless ways. It'll just happen like a butterfly that lands on your shoulder. You almost can't make it happen. You have to just intend and hope it does, and then it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, coming out of that very remarkable situation, I felt a bit spoiled, because then every time I looked into the sky, I'm like, "Where are you? Where's the big one? Can you send the big one out?" But,
they're there. Don't worry.
I know. So again, you have to be patient. If you have an encounter one day, you may not another day, and you go back out. And that was what I experienced. I was fortunate to have a very close friend of mine be interested in going on a very personal 2-person CE5 mission, all on our own into the southern deserts of Utah, really literally in the middle of nowhere. And within 2 minutes of literally parking the car and going outside to take a breath and just take in the beauty of the sky, we had a UFO give us this awesome zigzag, really crisp, nice Z's back and forth, and did a nice flyby and just disappeared. And then we had a few others during the 3 days that we were there.
Wow. Where was this? This was
that was Caneville, Utah, which just outside of Lake Powell, about an hour.
Right.
And
wow.
It's a great viewing spot. I was amazed at how much regular air traffic there was, though, in that area. Cause
there is.
I really thought, hey, we're going into the middle of nowhere. There must be great, stars and ability to see the sky. And there was, but there was, you could just count the planes going by every so often. Kind of annoying.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's everywhere we go is like that. And you begin to realize how much air traffic there is. And, of course, it added to that whenever we're doing one of these expeditions, we invariably also have military reconnaissance planes that come over. I know last time we were in England, we're going back to the crop circles and into England this summer in late July. And for those of you who want to join us, it's a fantastic week because we spend all day going around all the different crop circles and sacred spots. And then at night we have this site that's up on a high hill with these giant ancient trees on one side, and it's surrounded by 1,800 acres of Royal Trust farmland that we been given permission to use. And so we're on this 1,800-acre private estate, which is huge in England.
Wow.
And 1,800 acres is a lot of land in America, but never mind in England. And but we were having this amazing contact going on, and then immediately right over us came a series of helicopters that were so low that I could have hit the underside of it with a rock, but no lights on it, no markings, no lights, no navigation lights, completely illegal. And everyone on the group was going, "Oh my God, has this ever happened before?" I said, "Yeah, every week," and you just kind of take that, it's going to happen. But what's cool is that there's, even though there's that attempt by the military to suppress what we're doing, the ETs are so amazing in their ability to do things that are enigmatic, that move around the sort of buffoonery of these clumsy military attempts to suppress it. And I know at a certain point that all is going to change, because at a certain point we're going to have enough evolution in our society that even the military will be assisting us, because my experience has been that there are these kind of black projects within the military, but that most of the military people that I have met with, and certainly Commander Miller has found this to be the case, are victims of the secrecy. I know that when we did the briefing for the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, a 3-star general, he was very frustrated because he was very interested in the subject, had not been involved in any of these unacknowledged special access projects, as they're called, or black projects that deal with the UFO issue. But when he tried to find out about it, he was basically brushed off and was given a little ET doll as a gag gift by someone. And this is in spite of the fact that there are people within the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is kind of like the CIA for the Pentagon. It's almost as big as the CIA, but it's solely within the Pentagon for their intelligence gathering. And this was the guy who's in charge of it. It's like the CIA director for the Pentagon. And this guy was basically being strong-armed out. And so there are a lot of military people I meet with frequently who aren't part of any grand conspiracy. People think this is a much bigger conspiracy than it is. It's really a relatively small, compartmented, but very powerful group that's running this. And most of the military people are actually quite friendly to what we're wanting to do in terms of disclosure, bringing out the technologies, getting out of the Middle East oil conundrum, because they know their brothers in arms are dying over there for no good reason. They're very interested in assisting, but they don't know what to do. And it's I know that we had this experience with the man who was in charge of what's called J2, the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that we did a briefing for, that he at the end of the briefing, I was saying, we really need your help. He says, well, what can I do? He says, I've located, because I'd given him a document that had some of the project code numbers and code names on it, and he recognized one of them. And when he got hold of them, they basically told him, sir, we're not going to tell you about what we're doing. And he says, look, I'm the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and it was an admiral. And they said, yes, sir, we know who you are, but we're not going to discuss this with you. And they hung up on him. And the distressing thing about that was that it really scared him, and he was very angry. By the time I got to this briefing, he had that experience, because we had sent the briefing document that I had provided to the president in advance of this meeting. And the admiral, when I asked him, to help, he says, what can I do? He says, the best thing I have that I know about is a B-2 stealth bomber, and this cabal of folks you're talking about have anti-gravity devices that can do circles around it, apparently. I said, yes, they can. And he says, well, I don't even know what I can do, because I can't do anything without orders from my civilian leadership. And you've already said that the president is scared to move on this, and the Secretary of Defense is scared to move on it. And so what am I going to do? So it's this sort of, logjam. And so that's when I concluded, okay, we have to do disclosure, we the people. We have to make contact. It won't be Hillary Clinton at the State Department or John Kerry. If the people will lead, the leaders will follow, just because of the force of the ideas going out through thousands and then millions of people. And that's really what we hope this film will accomplish, is to create that in a really grassroots way. And this is, by the way, this is one of the things where I think Chris has a really good perspective on a kind of guerrilla tactics for independent film distribution, because while we're going to try to get a big distributor to pick this up so it shows at theaters all over the world, the likelihood of that is less than if we just release it on video on demand and also do a sort of an independent release through independent theaters that all of you listening today are basically our representatives locally. So that if you live in a city where there's an independent theater that has independent films, to contact them and to start talking about having a few nights, or even if it's one night where there's a special screening for this film, that's how this could create an enormous sort of momentum around the world, because this is one of the largest